Welcome to the next episode of our podcast, Innovate, Ignite, and Inspire. I am your host, Dr. Flo Barbie Watkins, and I think over the next two episodes, we're going to dig really deeply into what we mean when we say congregational vitality. Congregational vitality. And so I heard a sister congregation say that vital means full of energy and life, vigorous, animated. But you know what? I think too often what we do is we measure vitality in highly quantifiable ways. For example, average worship attendance or percentage of membership. What's the total membership? Like, how many members do you have attending your church? How about children and youth and young adults? How many of those do you have attending? Or how about giving? How many dollars are you receiving? And all of those are quantifiable, but do they actually measure vitality? You know what? Even thinking about that just kind of zapped my energy. And so I read in the parish paper. It was a paper that used to come out back in the day by Herb Miller, and he gave some signs of congregational vitality. And he explains that one of them is a worship that honors God and spiritually enriches its members and retains young adult newcomers. Now think about that. Worship that honors God, spiritually enriches members, but yet it retains young adult newcomers. Another thing he said were children and youth church school or Sunday school programs that retain parent newcomers. Because everybody knows if you can get the kids in, then obviously the parents are going to come along. And that's a sign of vitality. Maybe it's adult Sunday school, he says. Adult Sunday school and adult groups that give newcomers a sense of belonging so they feel like they belong to this particular church. That could be the case too. Or he says there's adult new member involvement in groups and ministries that flourish faith development and grow in discipleship. That means that there have to be some other groups outside of your church school or your adult Sunday school. There has to be a place for your adults to actually engage and become involved. Another thing he says is there has to be concern and care for members during times of illness and loss and other stress. Does this sound like vitality to you? Or does this sound like that's what the church should be doing in the first place? Another thing he says is community service. That means you have to give of yourself, benevolence, world missions, local missions, anything that fulfills on the commandment that Jesus says you have to love your neighbor as yourself. He also says that sharing your faith, inviting others to church, and hospitality that accomplishes the Great Commission to go ye therefore into all the world and preach the gospel. Vitality. He says there has to be an atmosphere of faith, hope, and love that promotes the spiritual growth of its members. Again, is that vitality? Is that vitality? And he also says that there have to be organizational systems that motivate and involve members in the ministries of that church. So something has to be put in place so that you can motivate and involve the people inside the church. That's vitality. He also says there has to be clergy and staff that promote and equip the members so that they will be involved in the ministry. That sounds a little cheerleaderish to me, but I digress. Of course, there has to be financial stewardship that makes certain that people are able to support the ministry. And then he also ends with that there has to be property and facilities that support the ministries of the church. Well, we learned something during COVID, that you don't have to have a building in order to be the church. Now, mind you, these are some antiquated things because they were originally written in 2016 and then republished in 2019. And those things were obviously before the COVID pandemic. But I wonder, are those descriptors of who the church should be, or is that a description of what vitality looks like. If we go with what that original definition of vitality was that I shared earlier, we talked about it being full of energy and vigorous and animated. Are these things that I just said necessarily animated and vigorous and full of energy? I don't know. You be the judge of that. And so then I said, well, who else talks about church vitality? And we found that there is a program out by the Reformed Church of America and the Evangelical Covenant Church. And they have 10 markers as to what vitality looks like. And they call it 10 healthy missional markers. And I'm going to go through these really quickly so that I can continue to elaborate on them. The first one is centrality of the Word. The Word of God has to be central. Number 2, life transforming walk with Jesus Christ. Number 3, intentional evangelism. Number 4, transforming communities through active compassion, mercy, justice ministries. Number 5, global perspective and engagement. Number 6, compelling Christian community. Number 7, heartfelt worship. Number 8, sacrificial and generous living and giving. Number 9, culture of godly leadership. And finally, 10, fruitful organizational structures. And those are signs of health. And those are signs of vitality. Well, let me just share something with you. I think that all of those things can be markers. All of those things can be indicators of a congregation that is doing the work of Jesus Christ in the world, that is engaged with that type of work. And I believe that we are called to do all of these things, but I'm not sure if we are able to name them ourselves. So said differently, if I call myself a doctor or a lawyer or president of the United States, does that make me those things? See, I think that congregational vitality is what people say about the church, not what the church says about itself. So right, we say that we're super friendly and we invite everyone, and yet our actions don't always align with our words. And sometimes it makes us sound hypocritical because we think that we are vital, and we're saying that we're vital because we have an excellent choir or because we have excellent music, we have excellent teaching. But how is that landing? And do the people outside the doors of the church recognize this as a vital ministry? There's a church in the Presbytery of the James that currently has about 8 young black men just coming to church all of a sudden. Was it because they wanted to play on the playground? Was it because they had a basketball court? Who knows what the motivating thing was? They wanted a snack. So all churches always have snacks available, right? But I'm not sure if that was the thing. I think there's something about the way that a church has to engage with its community to let that community know that they are there and that they are willing and able to be present and walk alongside them, to literally embody an incarnational ministry, the incarnational ministry of Jesus Christ himself. And I think that those are some of the marks. When we're looking at the centrality of the Word, of course that's so, but there are congregations that preach from the Bible and examine and exegete the text correctly, but they're not talking to anyone on Sunday mornings. They're not reaching people. They're not showing energy and imagination and enthusiasm. And you can have a praise band with drums and guitars and all kinds of things, but is that what vitality looks like? So in our next episode, we're going to talk about what the Presbyterian Church USA says are 7 marks of congregational vitality. So I invite you to come back, click on this podcast, and listen just for a little while longer as we talk about congregational vitality. I'm Dr. Flo Barbie Watkins, lead presbyter for vision and collaboration for the Presbytery of the James. Have a great day and stay inspired.